Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, Books, Girls, and Purrs. My name's Leslie, and Margaret Pinard, who's a historical fiction writer, tagged me in a bookish tag called Bookish A-Z Hot or Not. So I'm kind of participating like off the cuff here. So let's get started. A. Audiobooks. Hot or not? Audiobooks are hot. I rely on audiobooks so much. I do revere like a physical copy of a book, but as far as like being able to concentrate and to get through the amount of books that I read, I tend to rely on audiobooks as well. Definitely with like a hybrid read just to like help with concentration. B is building roman, which is basically like a nod to coming of age. Hot. This year I read so many coming of age stories that I've really loved, and I think it's like such a great platform to kind of discover and explore and reflect on one's own beliefs through other characters. Children's books. I'd say hot. I don't like read children's books that often, but I do find myself coming across let's say like graphic novels that are meant for like the younger age that I've really enjoyed this year, that have been really adorable. And also, yes, just kind of you know, like the Amelia Bedelia series, the old school one. I do have like some holiday versions that my daughter and I read to each other. I don't care. I have gray hair. She's a teenager, and I still will really enjoy those every year. D for digital. This is where my Libra side comes out, because some of these answers are going to be like yes but or no with an exception. I don't really read digital books. I mean, I haven't read digital books in a while. I'd say hot just because the accessibility to others that it provides. So I'm all for it. If yeah, it's just, it makes it so much easier, especially if people don't have transportation or may have disabilities, and it's easier to link to a library through digital resources. So I'm all about that. Experimental literature, that's definitely like a toss-up. I'd say hot, but just recently there have been a couple of I'd have to say like poetry collections, or yeah, literature that are experimental that just didn't gel with me, and I think I just wasn't smart enough for the material, honestly. So that's definitely a not with exceptions. Fantasy. I'm leaning towards not, unless it's done in such a humorous way. I'm gonna say not. Graphic novels. I love graphic novels. I love comics. I just enjoy the visual medium and what artists can do to bridge a gap between language and visual expression. A great example of that is the comic book series Saga. That is like one of my favorites of all time. Horror is definitely a hot, especially recently. I don't think I've read enough horror in my lifetime, but recently I've read some horror novels that really have like blown me away. I definitely love horror when it's used. Actually, I love any genre that uses their techniques as a way to bridge to like social justice. That's really my jam. Eyes for inspiration. I'm really not into inspirational material. It doesn't gravitate towards me, and to be honest, sometimes the times I've tried to give inspirational material a chance, it feels more of like a grift, and I can't see past it. Journalism is an absolute hot. I love nonfiction journalism. You know, growing up in the public school system and realizing how much we're not taught, my adulthood has really, my adulthood reading has really relied on journalism to explore truths, really. and I wish journalism was more revered and more protected. Kitsch is a nut. Library is an absolute hot. This gal has relied in the past so much on going to the library. I live in Los Angeles, so I've gone to the Grand Central Library, and you know who's also there? Homeless people, the unhoused, however you want to label them, and we're there alongside together. They rely on resources, I rely on resources. They need a roof over their head, especially when the weather changes, or you know, right now, especially in my area, there's issues of people being pushed out of their encampments and in other places. Where could they go for a little bit of just a moment of respite? The library. So I'm all about the library. Mysteries are hot, especially like when, I'm sorry, that's my cat, when it's all about crime fiction mystery. Do you want to say hi? Let's see if she'll do it again. She's not going to do it. She's going to get irritated by me. Where was I at? Nonfiction. I love nonfiction. Everything I said about journalism, I have to say about nonfiction. I especially love memoirs. Memoirs are really my jam. Especially experimental memoirs that I've read recently have been really like stellar. O is for Omnibus. I'm not completely a fan, and I'll use an example. I read a trilogy by Octavia E. Butler and Lilith's Brood, and I have like all 3 books in one, and there's all those books, Dawn and the other 2, they were republished separately, and the covers are absolutely beautiful, and I'm so jealous that I don't have those copies, but it would be like so frivolous to buy the new copies now. And so the cover that I have is quite simple, doesn't really get what the author's trying to get across anyways. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And also they're really huge and giant and bulky, and I'm not a fan. I'm a person that's always on the go, so I love myself a good old paperback that I could carry, and it just seems more accessible. Poetry is a not with an asterisk, because if you've seen any of my other videos, you know I have a big literary crush, Hanif Adirkib, and he writes poetry, essays, cultural and music criticism, and his poetry is the only poetry I've ever really liked. I have liked others, but his is like top notch, so not with an asterisk. Quest, I don't think I've read too many books that have to do with a quest. You know, the most famous would be like Lord of the Rings. I really love The Hobbit. I wasn't really into the other ones. Romance is it's a not for me. It's pretty rare that I like romance. The only romance I've liked is by Ceresia Glass, and that's about it. Everything else has been a miss. Although next year I'm going to try to give romance more of a shot. And we'll see how that goes, because it might be a disaster. S is for sci-fi. That's an absolute hot. I will be sci-fi's concubine to the end of my days. Once again, that's definitely like a genre that I've read this year and previous years, but specifically this year, where I've read like this marriage between sci-fi and social justice that is like peak everything that I love. And so I'm a sci-fi girl all the way. Translation, I am somewhere leaning towards not, which I'm not happy about. I have read some translated literature that I've loved, but it's gone from I loved to like being frustrated with the fact that I know if I'm reading translated literature, that also means that I'm reading from another culture, and I'm not going to understand certain things just by the nature of the material, and that's really opened some doors to like do digging and research to make sure I fully understand what the author is trying to get across. but I've also come across some translations that, I don't know, maybe weren't well put together, that end up being a bummer. And so I almost don't want to say I don't like the books because that I've had a bad experience with, because it could just be a translation issue, not necessarily what the original author intended, if that makes any sense. U is for Übermensch, and I am not a fan. This relies on one person having all the answers, very much leans into like the Christian idea of like a white savior. I'm very much not into that. And also I find it to be lazy writing that one person should have all the answers. It's just like a problematic narrative that leads to other characters being like not as intelligent as the one that has all the answers, and that is also equally problematic. So I'm really not a fan. The only time that I'll ever make an exception, if there's an author that tackles that, but to explore what is wrong with that kind of narrative, to create like a social commentary like that would be, yeah, that's the only way I could really think of it. Like, let's say Dune. Dune kind of has that, but I think the authors intended to explain like what is wrong with that. V for Victorian. It's not for me. As far as reading, I can't get into it. There's been plenty of movie adaptations of the Victorian era that I've enjoyed just fine. I don't want to experience that as far as reading it, and I'm not really interested in going backwards in that particular way. W is for Western. I've read several Westerns this year and last year that I've really enjoyed, but I don't think I've really been a big reader. I don't think I've ever read any Westerns prior to the past 2 years, so I don't have a lot of experience with that particular canon. I do want to delve into it more at some point, but that just hasn't really been my thing. So I'd say hot with a little asterisk, I guess, for my lack of experience. X is for X-rated. I'd say, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'd say hot. It just depends on how it's used, I guess. I'm not really interested in smutty material, but hey, if you enjoy it, to each your own. But yeah, I'm trying to think of an example of a book that had that. You know what? Let's not even go there. Y is for YA. I genuinely really enjoyed quite a bit of YA, especially towards the end of this year. And like I said, I think I kind of brought that up for an earlier particular alphabet. I can't even think of which one it is by now. Oh, coming of age. I kind of feel like these are kind of like hand in hand. And yeah, so I'm going to sound a little bit repetitive, but I've really enjoyed YA because sometimes it simplifies complex ideologies or social issues in a really beautiful way that the younger generation can understand, but also thinks, I feel like it's like a great way for me as an adult to step into something I'm not familiar with, or try to see from a younger person's perspective, keep myself grounded. Yeah, because there's so much going on. Everybody's going through something, no matter what their age. And last but not least, Z is for Zeitgeist. That's a big ol' hot for me. I feel like it encompasses, well, just what that is, right? The spirit of the time. So there's, like, depending on the book, there's this fever pitch of a tone to capture and bottle up a spirit of a particular time that really sucks me in. So I'm all about the Zeitgeist. Margaret Pinard, who's a historical fiction writer, tagged me. If you have not read her work, check it out. I'm going to tag a couple of people below. And I love you all. I hope you're having a great end of the year. And I'll talk to you later.